Welcome to today's session of the Purposeful Man, and today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking we're going to be replacing a stud from a 22 Dodge Durango that ended up breaking off as I was doing the tire rotation. It ended up coming off. As you can see here, there's the missing stud there. Hopefully you can see that. And sometimes these vehicles, with all the heat that occurs in the front there, the lug nuts, they end up becoming really stuck, really hard, and so they end up seizing, I guess, the nut there, and it makes taking it off harder. And then when you end up putting it on, even if you're using a torque wrench, sometimes because they're already compromised, they end up breaking off. In my case, the stud ended up getting stuck inside the lug nut, and I can't change it, and so I'm gonna have to order a new lug nut for it. So right now what we're doing is we're taking off the tire so that we can have access to the brake calipers and the rotor, and we're gonna go ahead and do that repair here. Hopefully it doesn't take too long, because even though this particular wheel has 5 studs on it, you're not really supposed to be driving it, especially long distance and at high velocity, with only 4. So the best thing that you can do is play it safe and fix that problem. Here's a close-up of what I'm looking at. Hopefully you can see that. See, this one got broken off, so we're going to be replacing this. But to be able to do that, we have to remove the caliper and the brakes and the rotor, so we can get to that. So there's where the fun part starts. You end up having to take the caliper off, and I'll go ahead and pause it here. All right, so here we go. We're gonna go ahead and take off the caliper, and we got a nice little little power tool that can help me do that. Jimmying it in here. All right. Sometimes it's a little bit complicated to get these things. All right. So that's not being very helpful. So we'll go manual with this. Get this nice, useful tool that, when the mechanical fails, end up using the manual. I get what I was doing wrong. I was tightening it. We don't want to do that. We want to untighten it here. That should be better. There we go. That does it. So now we do the bottom one. Make sure we hold the caliper, because we don't want it to fall. Okay. We're kind of holding it steady there. There we go. There's the caliper. There's the bottom. Well, don't make sure it doesn't fall. You would hate to cut your lines. So we put on this little bucket, and that should hold it while we try to do the rest of the work. So now, with that being removed, we can remove the rotor. Should be able to remove the rotor here. Actually gonna have to remove this piece as well. Actually, we are very fortunate, right? Because we don't actually have to remove the rotor. We actually have some ability to be able to take the stud out from the rear. Let's see if I can give you a good visual what that looks like. See, that is where the stud goes in, and so we're going to be able to remove that without even taking the rotor off. Some vehicles you have to remove the rotor, not in this case. The 2022 Dodge Durango, one less step we have to deal with. In this case, we grab ourselves a hammer and then pop it out. And that is that. All right, so we are able to get the broken stud out quite easily. There it is, right there. There's the one that snapped off, and I see that the ones that I purchased are a little bit different. They say these go to the 2022 Dodge Durango. We're going to go ahead and fit that on and make sure that it does indeed work. You definitely don't want to put something that will not work in the long run. And in this case, I don't think it's gonna work, so I'm gonna have to try again. I'm gonna have to reorder and get the right one. So we'll go ahead and stop it here. All right, so we're back. We actually have the right ones now. We actually had them. I was inadvertently confusing, not being a mechanic, I was confusing the bolts that go to the caliper that holds the brake in place. They look very somewhat similar, and so I got them confused. So that was on me, not being a mechanic. That's one of the things that I try to learn new things, right? And so in this case, I did not know that I had the wrong one. A mechanic would have known, of course. I did not know that. All right, so here we go. All right, so sometimes you succeed and sometimes you fail. Today, we partially succeeded at removing the stud, but I was not able to get the new one in because it's coming in at an angle. And so I need to figure out what's going on. And instead of using the hammer and trying to just jam it in there and messing up the threads on the stud, I'm gonna go ahead, take a pause, reassess, because that's what we do, right? As purposeful men and women, we reassess the situation before we cause greater harm, and that way I can still put the wheel on. I still got 4 out of the 5, and we can still operate the vehicle, but I won't put myself in a situation where I try to jam one in there and then it gets stuck, and then I'm really in hot chili. And so again, sometimes, you know, we're successful, sometimes we're not. I did a lot of research on it on YouTube videos. There was not really one for a 22 Dodge Durango, but I figured that maybe I could be able to use that information to get this job done. Not today. So it's very possible that the studs that I have are a little bit too long. If that's the case, then I'll have to reorder some more. Or it's possible that I'm missing something. And so for that, I'm going to go ahead and just take a knee and go ask an expert now, because I've done it the do it yourself, and I've not been very successful. But we continue to have purpose in our lives, and so that's what we're striving to do, right? We're striving to learn. We'll make mistakes, we'll fall along the way, but guess what? We're better for it, because now we learn from those lessons. And so, all right, so welcome back. So we took a knee to kind of reassess the situation. And after doing a little bit more research, I found out that one way to get about the issue of not being able to fit the stud into the wheel was to trim a piece of it off. And so that is all I had to trim off from the side so that I could be able to get it in to where it needs to go, because otherwise it was coming in at an angle and it would mess up the threads, and it would be worthless for me when I tried to put that lug nut on. I ended up having to do a couple things. I had to get myself one of these handy grinders to be able to grind that off, because doing it manually would have taken forever, and a vice grip as well, so that I could be able to hold the nut on the bolt so that I wouldn't mess up the threads. But now we're able to put it inside the area where it needs to go. It needs to go in through here. And now I'm able to do that without much issue here. See here? And there you go. And it's a perfect fit. So that is very good. There was no videos for a 2022 Dodge Durango. So if you're running into that issue, this may help you. There is another tool here that way you're not supposed to hit it with a hammer inside, because you could mess that up. But there is a special tool on Amazon. It's about 25 bucks. It's this little tool, and you'll insert it on that, see? And you'll put the nut on it. I'll have to do this, have to set the phone down to be able to do this, and that way I can tighten it, and I'll be able to tighten the stud in place without any issue. So I'll go ahead and pause here and get that job done. All right, so I've been able to secure the nut to the bolt, and what they recommend is using a wrench to be able to tighten it. You're not really supposed to use a power tool because that could impact it, and so the best way to do it is to be able to tighten it by hand, so that way you make sure that it is flush and you're not overdoing it. And what that does, it brings in the back into the rotor there and make sure that it has a good fit. All right, so what I'll do now is I'll let down the tire on the other side so it's not rotating. Right now, so I have gone ahead and used the special little tool to be able to tighten the bolt into the wheel, and here you can see it is pretty flush on the corners, so that means that it took well, and that's pretty much all you have to do. All I have to do now is go ahead and install the wheel, put the lug nuts on, make sure that they're torqued to the right pounds per square inch, and we'll be ready to go, and we'll have a safe ride. So hopefully this video is helpful for anybody that has a 2022 Dodge Durango or any vehicle that has kind of this issue. Again, I'm not a mechanic or anything, by no means of the imagination, but just based off of the YouTube videos that I was able to review, I was able to determine that this was one way to get this done, and so that saved me a few bucks in my pocket. Part of living purposefully in our lives every day is not just about the spiritual purpose, but also just the everyday life that we carry in the world. This is a journey, and if we live our life with purpose on a daily basis, our life will be that much more fulfilling. And so I encourage everybody to live in a purposeful fashion. With that, Purposeful Man out. Hope you guys have a great day. God bless.